Welcome everyone to another episode of Listening In, a show dedicated to polishing our skills in talent acquisition so that the candidate has the best experience possible. Normally what we do is listen in on a phone call and then talk about it. What went well, what could maybe have been better. Today what we're going to do is listen to the driver's voice from a different angle. And what I mean by that is one of our brands, Truckers News, does polls all the time to the audience, the driver audience. With it being the season that it is, right, giving thanks, let's talk about some of the things that drivers appreciate when it comes to having conversations about the potential of working with you. So in order to do that, we're maybe taking a little bit of a different angle here where, yes, we're going to talk about what they appreciate by also talking about what they don't appreciate. So let's jump in. There's just a few polls that we're going to talk about today. And the first one is, what's the most frustrating part of talking to recruiters? So these are multiple choice, so it's not a fill in the blank. It might be interesting to see what those answers would be. But this is multiple choice, and there's definitely two answers that stood out from the rest. And it was nearly neck and neck on the top spot. So we'll mention both, and let's talk about it. So the first one that just edged out the second one was when they sound scripted. So we'll dive into that. And then the second one, really close behind, was when they don't answer my questions. So yeah, I could see how both of those things would be super frustrating for a driver. So when they sound scripted, so I really think there's two possibilities here when it comes to sounding scripted. And there's probably more, but two biggest ones would be, it sounds scripted because it very well could be. You might have recruiters out there who have their notes, they have a process, and they're just looking to follow step 1, 2, 3, 4, and on down the list, especially when it comes to qualifications. Is this individual qualified for the position? And that's okay, right? There are things that we need to talk about to make sure it's a good fit for everyone. And one thing that we've talked a lot about on this show is how to make it sound natural. We're just having a conversation with someone. We're trying to understand what it is they're looking for. We're filling them in on what we're looking for, and hopefully it ends up being a really good fit. The other possibility is it sounds scripted because maybe that recruiter's having the same conversation all day, every day. So while they may not be reading anything off of a piece of paper, maybe they're in a rhythm. They're in this groove where it's the same question over and over again, even though we're talking to different people. So that's another topic that we've covered before, which is how to not sound so robotic or routine. And it really is keeping in mind that there's a unique individual on the other side of that call. And so asking open-ended questions to understand their motivation, what they're looking for, not every answer will be the same. And then tailoring that conversation based off of the information we're learning about that individual. So those are the biggest things that are frustrating drivers at the moment. So what they do appreciate is just having a natural conversation. They're calling in or they filled something out because they want to learn more about what's available. So let's just have a conversation and talk to them about that and not sound scripted. And then the second piece to that was they're not answering my questions. And once again, I'll give a couple possibilities for that. One may be don't know the answers. Can't answer the questions, don't have the answers. And I think it's fine to, hey, I'm not sure, and go ask someone to find out. Or, hey, I'll follow up with you about that. But just not answering the questions, yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough to hire people who feel like maybe you're holding something back. And that would be maybe the other part of that, which is, hey, I'm not answering your questions because I don't think you'll like the answer I have to give. So that's going to actually go right into our next question, which is, what missing detail from a job post makes you the most hesitant to apply? Number one answer by far is pay information. So that's why I'm connecting it to this previous one of, hey, they're not answering my question. So of course, somebody calling in about a position wants to understand what the pay looks like. And if you as a recruiter might feel like, hey, I don't love the answer I have to give, so I'm going to kind of dance around that question. Yeah, they're going to see right through that. And it is frustrating that they're looking into this job and they want to understand what it could mean for them financially. And so I think it's perfectly fine and a good way to handle it to say, you know what, it depends. Let's talk a little bit more about your experience and maybe any endorsements you have. Let me learn more about you so that I can get you paid the most I possibly can. And I think that's a great way to handle that question. If you don't necessarily want to throw out your first answer, let's talk through it a little bit more so that you can give a really good answer based on what they're bringing to the table. So I know this is talking specifically about job posts, but we hear it on the calls all the time where we're afraid to have that pay conversation because, hey, let's call it like it is. There's other fleets out there, other positions out there that are probably paying more. But what else do you bring to the table? And what else is motivating that driver to make a move, to make a change? Let's learn about those things, and then that can change the tone of the conversation and really make it about them. So that takes us to our third poll today, which is, which benefit would you rank the highest in your job search? So obviously pay is a big deal. We just got done talking about pay. So when it comes to benefits, and once again, this is multiple choice. It wasn't fill in the blank. So maybe answers would have changed a little bit. But the number one answer by far was healthcare. So drivers really appreciate knowing what the healthcare benefits look like for that position. Of course, they want to know what it pays, but it looks like, based off of this and other conversations we've listened to together, healthcare is a big deal. It represents a significant cost for all of us. So understanding what kind of benefits, how soon they kick in, what they cover, it's definitely something that job seekers want to have that conversation about and understand better. So once again, when pay is a big deal and we've got to talk about it, but understanding what it is that you offer, understanding what it is that makes you different, all those things help you have a better conversation, right? We talk about being able to answer questions that come up, not sounding scripted, understanding what your pay is like, but also all the other benefits of working with you can lead to really good conversations where the candidate walks away feeling good about the information they learned, feeling like they had a conversation with a real person who was really working to understand what they were looking for and what they want, essentially, in a new position. The fourth and final poll I wanted to wrap up with is not actually a driver poll. This was a question asked to fleets of varying sizes, right? Some small, some big. And I thought the answer was really interesting. So the question is this, it's, do you listen to phone calls and use them to train recruiters? And once again, the answer kind of surprises me because, I've been in different settings, even live and in-person settings, where kind of took an informal poll of, hey, raise your hand if you commonly and routinely listen to phone calls for your recruiting team. The vast majority of the time, hands go up. The majority of hands go up. And this is typically a room full of recruiting leaders. But on this specific poll here, only 40% said they listen to phone calls and use them as part of their training with recruiters. So the other 60% say they don't. Now, I will say this was a combination of leadership as well as recruiters. So maybe that's what switched things a little bit, where leaders, maybe they're often listening to calls or just not letting people know, or they feel like they're listening to calls all the time. But when it comes down to it, not doing it as often as they think, because from the recruiter's perspectives, they feel like they're not listening to calls all that often, or it's not routine for them to listen in. So with the things that we talked about today, I think it's really important to review the game film and pull some calls at random, listen to them, and talk about, hey, am I sounding robotic there? Does it sound scripted? How did I handle it when people were asking about pay? What about benefits? Because these are the things drivers are saying they really appreciate about the conversations, is feeling like they can ask questions and getting answers to those questions. So if you want to show us some love and appreciation, keep these 3 polls in mind, and let's go out there and have the best conversations we can.